So thanks if you just tuned in. My name is Robin Alveri. I'm the Associate Director for Graduate and International Programs here at the University of San Diego School of Law. And joining us today, we also have Felina Fleck, who is our Assistant Director, and Daniel Pozos, our Graduate Programs Coordinator. So between the three of us, we'll try to answer any questions you may have as we go along. And you can also note your questions and ask them at the end. That would probably be best. We may be joined later by our Assistant Dean, Karen Sigmund, who you'll see noted here on the first slide. She's hoping to make it today, but if not, she sends her greetings and is also happy to talk to any of you about our LLM programs. So the slide you're looking at right now shows our campus. If you have not been to San Diego, I encourage you, if you get a chance, to come visit us. And you can see we're close to the ocean. That is Mission Bay and the Pacific Ocean in the background of our campus. And it's very beautiful. We're actually ranked #1 most beautiful campus in the entire United States this year. So that's according to Princeton Review. So that was a great honor for this year. And we're celebrating our 75th anniversary as a university. So that's a fun fact to note. The law school itself is 70 years old. So it was established not too long after the university. And we are a private Catholic institution and considered on the small to medium side. So we have about 9,000 or so students, both undergraduate and graduate level, and a very walkable campus because of our size. And at the law school, we have about 800, a little more than 800 students every year who are being educated, whether it's in a JD program or an LLM program, or perhaps the Master of Science in Legal Studies, which Felina is a graduate of. So today's focus, since you're law students, will be on our LLM programs. And we have quite a few to choose from, and you'll see them listed near the bottom of the slide here with the bullet points. And the one we'll focus on today is the LLM in US law, because that's designed for people whose law degree is from outside of the United States. So any country besides the US, even if you happen to be a dual US citizen or maybe a permanent resident, if your law degree is from Mexico, for example, or any other country, we'd probably recommend the LLM in US law as the one you should consider. The other LLM programs, with the exception of the LLM in Spanish, are for people who have an American JD degree, so the professional law degree from the US. And it's presumed that they've already taken all bar exam subjects, they're familiar with US doctrinal law, and they've probably passed a bar exam already and are practicing attorneys. So that's why the other LLM programs are usually not the best choice for an internationally educated applicant. You will see the LLM in Spanish is mentioned. That's one of our online programs for people who prefer to earn the degree in Spanish. That's not really the focus today, but we're happy to share that program information with you if you are interested in the LLM in Spanish. Okay, so let me just go to the next slide and look at our agenda for this session. First, we'll talk about which program you may want to choose and look at the degree requirements for the different choices, as well as the curriculum differences. For example, you might want an LLM program that has a wide variety of courses you can choose from. Some of you might be interested in pursuing a concentration in a certain area of law, and so we have that as well. And others may be interested in taking bar exam subjects because they want to sit for a state bar exam. So choosing your program is usually tied to the curriculum that you hope to study in one sense. And those of you who are thinking about a bar exam, we'll look at the eligibility requirements just from a general perspective, and also look at California and New York because they're the two most popular choices that our students are interested in as far as taking a bar exam. So every state has its own bar exam requirements. So we'll just be looking briefly at California and New York. After the bar exam, we'll look at different employment options, which is a common question that I receive a lot, especially from our student visa holders. So we'll look at different ways that you can get practical experience, either in the program while you're an LLM student or perhaps after graduation. And then last, we'll look at the application details and answer questions about scholarships and funding. Okay, so that's a little roadmap of where we're going. So we'll start with the LLM program choice and which one makes the most sense. So our LLM in US law, again, is our focus today, but you should note that we have a campus program taught here in beautiful San Diego. And we also have an online program for those of you who either can't or aren't ready to relocate to San Diego for a year to do your program. We do have an online option. And that launched this summer. It was our first cohort of students in the online program in English. And so next summer will be our second year of that program. Okay, so this is a shot of Warren Hall, which is the law school building on campus where we're sitting right now. It's kind of centrally located, I think, in the best part of campus. So there's a lot of close facilities nearby if you want to get something to eat or a coffee or the bookstore. It's really easy to get around from here from Warren Hall. Okay, so degree requirements for our campus LLM program, almost identical to the online, just tiny little difference here with the number of credits. Our campus program requires you to complete 25 credits, and this is under the academic rules, and have a cumulative GPA of at least 2.0, which is considered a C average for those who use a letter graded system. Okay, so it's not terribly high. We want to take some pressure off of the students and not require a 2.5 or a 3.0. We just want them to at least perform at an average level. And that helps to accommodate people with different levels of English proficiency in our program. So that's the GPA that you need to maintain to be in good academic standing. It doesn't mean that you need that GPA on your law school transcript from Mexico, for example, but this is what you need to maintain when you're a student here at USD. Okay, and there are only 2 required courses in the program. We have Introduction to US Law and Legal Writing and Research. And you'll see they're both 2 credits and the descriptions are there, kind of an overview or an introduction to the US legal system and style of research and writing. And that leaves you with 21 elective credits to use in the program. So you have a lot of choices of what you can do with these 21 credits. You do need to take at least one course that's considered a writing course during your program, a more advanced writing course than legal writing and research. And it could be a class in any area of interest that you have. If it requires a paper or writing assignments, typically a research paper, that would qualify as a writing course. So other than that, you know, some of you might pursue a concentration, and we'll look at the 6 optional concentration areas. And some of you may choose to use those electives for bar exam subjects. So let's take a look on the next slide of how that might work out in your curriculum. First are the concentrations. And again, we're on the campus LLM program. Concentrations are not available in the online program, but we'll look at that in a little while. Here are the 6 that I had mentioned are available, and they tend to be really popular areas of law, and they've turned into concentrations. So business and corporate law, criminal law, environmental and energy law, intellectual property, international law, and taxation. So if you have an interest in any of these areas and really want to focus on that during your LLM study, you can certainly do that. And if you do earn a concentration, not only do you receive your diploma for the LLM degree, but you will receive a certificate of concentration. So that's a separate document that shows that you focused on one of these 6 areas of law. And it would also be noted on your USD transcript if you ever wanted to show that to an employer, for example, or anyone else who wanted to know if you concentrated in a particular area of law. Okay, so it's almost impossible to do more than one concentration. Sometimes students may take a course that has a business and corporate aspect to it, and maybe tax or maybe international, but the way the credits work out, you're really only going to complete one concentration as a student. Okay, so again, these are optional, they're not mandatory. Some students would rather take a variety, like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, different kinds of law, which is completely fine. Okay. So moving on from concentrations, let's take a quick look at our online LLM program. This is the one that started summer 2024 this year. And you'll notice it requires 24 credits instead of 25, like the campus program. And same GPA requirement. So you need to graduate or maintain a 2.0 average to stay in good academic standing. And that again is a C average for letter grades. And it's broken down into summer, fall, and spring. We start off the program every summer, and that's when you would take 2 courses, Intro to U.S. Law and Professional Responsibility. And then you'll see that's followed by 4 courses in the fall, and then the final 4 courses in the spring. Now, these are subject to a little bit of revision or change, but that's a pretty good indicator of what you would expect to take in this online LLM program. So it's called the Online LLM in U.S. Law. So the same name as the campus program, it's just the online version. And you'll see the curriculum is set for all students. So all students take these same classes that are listed here on this schedule. So there are no concentrations available. You can't choose other electives, at least not at this point in time. So everybody's taking the same thing. Okay, so that all adds up to 24 credits. Online LLM coursework will generally be accepted for bar exam purposes, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to our bar exam slides, which I think are coming up right now. Here we go. I just wanted to introduce the subjects first that are taught on the California bar as well as the New York bar exam. There are other states, right, with bar exams that you may be interested in taking, like Texas or Illinois or Maryland, Michigan, but we'll just focus on California and New York because that's the most popular choices for our students. So you can see California has 12, I would say 13 subjects, depending on how you break out criminal law and procedure. I like to just treat them together rather than separately. And then New York has about 10 subjects, and there's quite a bit of overlap and similarities between California and New York, but there are some differences as well. So for example, in California, the bar exam will cover community property, but in New York, no. New York has testing on the UCC, on Article 9 for secured transactions, but California does not. Professional responsibility is a big topic in California that runs throughout many subject areas in law, so that's an important course that you would want to take if you plan to sit for the California bar. Okay, and next to this, you'll see a shot of one of our local beaches, not too far from campus, with some students enjoying the sunset. So that's accessible to you as a student here at USD. And let's see, I think we have a little more information on California and New York specifically, but I did want to mention our general requirements for bar exam eligibility first. Probably more than half of the US states allow an international LLM graduate to sit for their bar exam. Not every state does, but most do. And each state and the District of Columbia or DC, they have their own jurisdiction and their own rules for their bar exam and the admission requirements. So if you're thinking of taking a bar exam, it's important to communicate with that state bar office and determine what their requirements are. I mean, we can help point you in the right direction, but it's really up to the student to start that communication with the state bar office to determine their eligibility status. One important note on this slide is for New York potential bar takers. If you're going to do an LLM program in the US, it really should be on campus and not the online version, because the New York bar does not accept online LLM coursework in order to qualify for sitting for their bar exam. Okay, so you would do campus program versus California. You can do your LLM on campus or online, and they accept that coursework. Last, as an LLM student, you obviously can't take all of the subjects tested on the California bar, the New York bar. There's not enough credits in the program to do that, and you're only doing a one-year program in most cases. But you can take quite a few subjects, maybe 4, 5, up to 7, perhaps, if you're doing 4, 8, maybe 9, if you're doing the online program, okay? But you'll obviously miss a few subjects that are tested on the bar exam, so you can make that up by doing a private prep course, bar prep courses, and JD graduates do that as well as LLM graduates. Okay, so now just looking at California a little more specifically, they have a website, which you will see when I share the slides and the recording with you later, but it's for foreign educated attorneys. So some helpful information on what you need to do to establish your eligibility to sit for the bar. And it basically breaks down into two groups of people, either an attorney who's already admitted to the practice of law in their home country, and those who are not. They might have their law degree, but they're not part of the bar in their local jurisdiction yet. So they're not technically practicing lawyers or attorneys. So according to California, if you're already an attorney, you have a certificate of good standing, you're a member of your local bar, let's say in Mexico, then you really don't need any additional legal education in order to sit for the bar exam. It might be helpful to take an LLM program or to do a JD program, but it's not required. So you can basically register for the bar exam, pay the fees, study hard, and hopefully pass the exam. Okay. If you are not admitted to the active practice of law, that's the group here at the bottom, then you should plan on doing at least 1 year of law study at a school in the US, and it should be ABA approved or ABA accredited, and that stands for the American Bar Association. And you should take at least 20 credits in your LLM program. Now, our online one is 24, and our campus program is 25 credits, so you're covered there. The third point, for California, you can do it online or on campus. That's your choice. And then finally, California would want you to take professional responsibility in your LLM program. They also recommend that you take at least 3 other bar subjects minimum, but it's not mandatory, but I think it's still a good idea to go ahead and take those bar exam subjects. There was a recent rule change this summer with the California Bar where they used to require professional responsibility and require 3 minimum additional bar subjects, but that has changed slightly now to recommended for those other bar subjects. Okay. As an academic advisor, I would still encourage you to take as many bar subjects as you can to help better prepare for the exam. All right, and there's another shot of USD campus. That's our Immaculata Church, which is just a couple minutes walk from the law building. New York should be the next slide here. Some more details and what they require for internationally educated attorneys. So it has to be a campus program, not online. And you should take at least 2 credits in professional responsibility, 2 credits in legal research and writing, 2 credits in American law, something like our Intro to US Law course, and then at least 6 more credits in the subjects that are tested on the New York bar exam. So I've listed those subjects again here on this slide. So you would want to choose at least 6 credits in some of these areas. Okay, so that's the basic requirements to sit for the New York bar exam. Similar to California, not identical. The main distinction being online LLM coursework and whether it's accepted or not. Okay. Last main section before we take a look at the application process are employment options. And I'm focusing on our F1 visa students here. If you are a permanent resident or a US citizen, you have more work options available to you. But many of our international LLMs have a student visa called the F1. And this is a summary of what they are eligible for employment. So first of all, they can work on campus here at USD up to 20 hours per week, or HPW, I've abbreviated. That's when school is in session. During official school breaks or holidays, you can technically work more than that, up to 40 hours per week. I really don't know any students I could think of who've done that. They usually are busy enough with everything else and do no more than 20 hours per week. And it's considered automatically authorized, and it's incident to status. It means it's attached to your status as an F1 student. So you don't need any special permission from the US immigration authorities. You're automatically allowed to work on campus. So if you get a job offer, you're allowed to work, and our international center can help you apply for a social security number, which you will need for work purposes. Okay, but it's a fairly straightforward process. On-campus employment would typically be something with our different facilities, not necessarily in the law school, although there might be a professor who needs a student help on, with a project or something short term, but usually it'll be jobs with places like our bookstore called the Torero store, or in campus dining. We have different dining establishments, possibly in the library, places like that. So that's the sort of on-campus employment you would expect to do. Another option for employment in a way, or at least practical experience, are the legal clinics that we offer here at USD. So as an LLM student, you can take a clinic as part of your curriculum. So it functions like a course and you get academic credit for it. And what the clinic is the opportunity to actually represent real clients here in the San Diego community. So you help them with their cases, whether it's tax trouble they're having with the IRS, or maybe a tenant who's getting evicted from their apartment, or a women's rights clinic that helps maybe moms who are having issues, single mothers with custody, things like that. There's a veterans rights clinic, there's a public interest clinic, a housing rights clinic, 3 different tax clinics, child policy and advocacy clinic if you're interested in child rights and remedies, an entrepreneurship clinic. So I think altogether there are about 14 different clinics that you can choose from. So as an LLM student, you can take a maximum of 6 clinic credits during your program. And most students that I've advised are only taking 1 clinic. So that's fairly standard. And then the last employment option here is looking after graduation. So the post-degree employment. And most students are going to be doing something called optional practical training, or OPT, if they're here with a student visa. And it basically allows the student to extend their status up to 1 additional year after graduation, so they can remain in the US and work. And so up to 1 year maximum is allowed, and the student can have no more than 90 days, so say 3 months of unemployment. So you don't need a job offer at the time of graduation to qualify for OPT, but hopefully you will find one within that 90-day window. Okay, and the job must be related to the law or the legal field, because that was your area of study. That's a key part of OPT, so it's connected to your area of study. And we participate in helping students find jobs in a couple ways. So point 3 here near the bottom are the interview fairs that we participate in specifically for LLM students. And there's a big one on the East Coast and on the West Coast that our students are invited to attend. So the LLM Fair in New York is sponsored by New York University, NYU School of Law, and we're part of the consortium of law schools who participate in that. So right now I'm actually working with students on that upcoming job fair and letting them know how to apply for interviews and that sort of thing. And then in Los Angeles, there's a separate LLM fair that's hosted by UCLA Law, and we are part of that consortium of schools. So it's kind of a select group, right? If you go to one of these law schools, you're invited to participate in the interview fairs. So not every law school in the US is eligible to send their students, but fortunately we are for both New York and LA. And then the last point, we do have a career services office that's available to our LLM students, so they can help you with a job search, especially for the post-degree, right, after graduation job. So there are job boards. They can help you do a job search. They can also look at your resume to see if it needs to be changed or updated in any way to be more in line with what US legal employers are looking for. For example, I don't know how many of you have a resume or a CV. It might be multiple pages, which is fine for many purposes. But if you were going to apply for a legal job in the US, we'd probably want to get your resume down onto 1 page, a single page, because that's what employers are looking for. So our career services office can help you work on your resume and get it into that format. And they can also look at cover letters and give you recommendations on the language that you should use in your cover letter. And finally, they can do mock interviews. So you can practice, right, what a job interview may sound like or what the experience is like before you actually do it. So that's a very helpful form of support that they have. So the Career Services Office is downstairs from us. It's in the law building, and they have a special person kind of dedicated just to our LLM students. Her name is Jocelyn. She's amazing, and you would likely work with her during your time here as an LLM student. Okay. And Felina, if you see any questions in the chat box or raised hands, you can let me know, but otherwise I'll just keep moving along. We're getting to the nitty-gritty details now. How do you apply and what's the timeline? All right, for campus program, we offer 2 admission terms, so you can begin in the fall or the spring. Fall is usually our larger entering class because students will have graduated that past spring or summer, and so they're looking for a program in the fall. And that starts in mid-August here on our campus. Usually like by the 3rd week of August, classes are starting. And then our spring semester starts in early January, like right after the New Year holiday. So we are looking at January 6th, I believe, for classes to start in spring of 2025. Our online program, as I mentioned before, begins every summer term. So you can't really enter in the fall or the spring. You start your program in the summer, taking those first 2 courses online, and then it's followed by 4 courses in the fall and 4 more courses in the spring. But in either program, campus or online, it's designed to complete in 1 year. So whether you're on campus or whether you're online, you'll probably be with us for 1 year. Sometimes a campus student may have a few credits left to finish and might go into a 3rd semester. So that's a somewhat common scenario, but it's designed to really be done in 1 year. If you're on a student visa, you need to make sure that you are full-time. So that means taking at least 9 credits per semester. A typical course load is more like 12 credits, right, to finish the degree in 1 year. But if you're taking at least 9, that's considered full-time. And being a full-time applicant means you get automatic consideration for a scholarship. It's called a merit scholarship. So you don't even need to ask for the scholarship. You would be automatically considered. And what normally happens is if an applicant is accepted to the program, they get their acceptance letter and their scholarship letter at the same time. So you know what level of funding that you have. One caveat for the scholarship, it's not available for online students because the tuition in that program is already substantially reduced. So merit scholarships are for the campus students only, right? In the LLM and US law program on campus. Okay. Deadlines and our application package requirements. If you're looking for the online program, which starts in the summer, we ask that you apply by May 1st of the year that you want to start. So it's really close to the start time. If you can do it earlier than that, great. So for example, you could apply anytime between now and May 1st next year to enroll in summer 2025. That's for the online program. The campus program, if you're choosing the fall term, we ask that you apply by June 1st of that year that you want to attend. And if you're looking for a spring, then you should apply by November 1st. So for example, we're looking at spring 2025 applications right now, and we're accepting those all the way until November 1st. These different deadlines are called priority deadlines because they're not super strict. We're a little bit strict if the person needs a visa because it takes time to get through that process. But if you don't need a visa, we can probably accept an application that's filed a little bit after these deadlines, but the sooner you can get it in the system, right, the better, and we can make a decision, which normally takes about 2 or 3 weeks from the time your application is complete. So it's not a long process. And the application package items are listed here at the end, the application itself, a personal statement, and resume. Those are the 3 main items that you would be providing as the applicant. And we ask that applicants file their application online, which is through an organization called LSAC, or the Law School Admission Council. And their website is mentioned there in parentheses next to application. It's llm.lsac.org. And they transmit law school applications to US law schools all over the country. So pretty much all law schools are using LSAC to process their applications. So you're going to upload your application, submit a personal statement and a resume with your online application. Letters of recommendation, we require just 1. If you want to do more, the system will let you include up to 4 letters, but at least 1 is required. And that can be from a professor or former professor, maybe a lawyer that you've worked with as an intern or an extern, or anyone else who's familiar with your legal education or your legal work if you have any work experience. We don't really distinguish like which letter is better, if it's coming from a professor or from an attorney or some other professional colleague. It can really be anyone who's familiar with your legal work or education. Your transcript, that's the official transcript with your courses and your grades listed on it from your law school. And we require that, or LSAC would require you to have the school submit it directly from the school to LSAC. If it's in another language, then an English translation would need to accompany that. Sometimes students will say, well, do you accept a copy? Or it may take some time to get my official transcript. And that's fine. We can work with a copy if we have to, but we really need the official transcript for our records before you could be enrolled at USD, because that's just a requirement from our law school registrar and our institution. Okay, the last item, a TOEFL or IELTS score. This would be for English proficiency testing. And many of you may have taken a TOEFL or IELTS before. Those are the two types we accept. The TOEFL is the IBT, like I, B like boy, T like Tom. And that can be done at a test center. It can be done online. They have a TOEFL IBT online as well. I think it's called the home edition. We do accept that. And IELTS, the version we accept is called the academic IELTS. And that has a score range of up to 9, I believe. But for the TOEFL, the suggested target score is 93. And for IELTS, we're looking for a target score of 7.0. Now, does this mean if you don't have a 93 TOEFL or you don't have a 7.0 IELTS that you will not be accepted? Well, not necessarily. Our admissions committee will look at a score, maybe if it's a 6 or a 6.5 IELTS, or if it's a 90 on a TOEFL, they'll probably look to see what's the score breakdown, and was this person a little bit weak, maybe in speaking, but reading and writing scores were really high, or listening was high, and speaking was high, but writing was kind of low. So it might depend on how the score is broken down, where a person could potentially still be accepted to the program. But it's better to try to hit those target scores of 93 or 7.0, because then you can be assured that, and we will know that you're comfortable operating in an English language program, a law program, right, which is challenging. Law school, taking your courses in Spanish is challenging enough. So doing it in English, even more so. And we want to make sure students are set up for success and they're comfortable. And that's why we require the scores at those levels. Okay. So I think that gets to the end of our application materials. Scholarships are the last item, I think, on the agenda to cover. As I mentioned before, our LLM applicants are eligible for a merit scholarship if they are full-time. So prepared to take at least 9 credits per semester. That's the minimum required for full-time. And if they're applying for the campus program, because the online program does not offer scholarships. So this merit scholarship acts as a tuition discount. You receive it as a credit on your student account each semester. So what happens is it's broken into 2 halves or 2 parts. So let's say you have a $16,000 merit scholarship, for example. You would get an $8,000 credit on your student account in the first semester, and then another $8,000 credit on your account in the second semester. And that matches up with how billing is done at the university, because you're billed by the semester, and it depends on how many credits you're taking. All right, so the credit cost for campus is $2,080, so 2080 per credit. And so they look at how many credits did you enroll in, do the math, that's your tuition bill, and then you would get a merit scholarship credit to reduce that tuition bill for the semester. And then the same process would happen in the second semester as well. How many credits are you enrolled in? Calculate the tuition, and then subtract any scholarship credit that you have coming. Okay, and just a note on payments, you can set up payment plans with the university each semester, so you don't have to pay that whole semester bill at one time. If you don't want to, or you're not prepared to, you can break it into 5 equal payments, and you can do that each semester. So that's kind of helpful to be more flexible that way. International scholarships, those are not affiliated with USD, but there might be other sources of funding that you qualify for. An example I mentioned here is the Postgrad Solutions. They have an LLM study bursary. It's open to students from any country. I think it's around 2,000 British pounds, something like that in terms of value. So it's not an insignificant award. It can definitely help. So do a search. And we also have a web page that lists some different options for international student scholarships that I'm happy to share with you. And again, they're not affiliated with USD. They're just other scholarships that some students have reported success with. And so they apply to those separately, right, from USD. Last, student loans are sometimes a source of funding, and that could be through federal financial aid, or it could be through a private company like Empower. I'm not endorsing Empower. It's just one that I know that international students have used before when they're looking for a private loan. So you would have to check, right, their background and see if you're comfortable using them as a loan provider. But for federal financial aid, we have our own office here at the law school that handles financial aid for law students. And that's both JDs, LLMs, MS and legal studies students. So if you're a citizen or a permanent resident of the US or a certain category of eligible non-citizen, perhaps somebody who lives here with asylum or refugee status, for example, you're probably eligible for federal financial aid. So that means you can get a student loan from the government. And our financial aid office here at the law school would help you through that process. The other option would be more like a private loan with a company like Empower. And the latest information I had from them is that unlike some lenders, they don't require a cosigner. They don't require that you have a US credit history established, right? Because international students often have no credit history here. And they offer low interest rate loans as well in a variety of amounts from as low as $2,000 all the way up to $50,000. So that's just there, it's listed as an additional funding source that you may wish to consider or at least know about. All right, so I think I've covered all of our funding options. Why don't we open it up for questions? That's where we are now. And if you need me to go back to any slide in particular, I'm happy to do that. So do we have questions in the chat? Or raised hands, or if somebody just wants to.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah. Who is that, Herman or somebody else?
I heard somebody else. I can go second, but yes.
I was just mentioning there is no questions in the chat, but I did post the link to the scholarship website.
Great. Thank you. Herman, do you have a question?
Yes. So I just graduated on May, and I just received like a week ago my transcripts, and I already started the process to translate the grades. But they told me that they will like go on a 2-week process in order to translate everything. And I heard that the due date it's on November the 1st. So I don't know what to do in that case.
Yeah, that's one of those situations I think we could probably at least work with a copy for review to get your application reviewed and make a decision on it while we wait for the official translation and everything to come later. So that shouldn't be a problem. I would still encourage you to apply so that you apply on time with what you have, and then you can always add or finalize your application later with the full official transcript.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Juan, Daniela?
Yes, me. Thank you. I was wondering if about the concentration program and the one that use the subjects for the bar exam. So
yeah. Yes,
if you only select the subjects to be able to present the bar exam and hopefully pass it with a great I don't know review,
basically a C or better or a 2.0 or better.
You cannot do a concentration program if you want to do the bar?
That's a great question. And sometimes students will ask exactly that. And it's basically impossible to do both, right? To earn a concentration and to take, let's say, only bar exam subjects. There may be a course here and there that kind of qualify as both, like corporations, for example, that's tested on the bar exam. And it also counts as a course towards the business and corporate law concentration. But it's a matter of really kind of choosing one over the other or prioritizing one over the other. Are you more interested in preparing for a bar exam, or are you more interested in getting more specialized legal education? And that's where you would look at a concentration.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Alberto, no questions? Anyone we missed?
I have
Yes.
one last question. Oh, well, go Alberto.
Oh,
Sorry.
go on, Herman. Don't worry.
So regarding the exam, the IELTS and the TOEFL exam,
Mhm.
if I'm a US citizen, how do I qualify to do also the exam?
Well, you'd probably be a good candidate for a TOEFL waiver. We do have a waiver form for those who have high English proficiency, and that may be a great choice for you. The one thing to keep in mind is that students who do not submit a TOEFL or an IELTS and they do a waiver, let's say we approve the waiver, that makes the student ineligible for special language-based exam accommodations that they can get here at the law school. So let's say a person submits the TOEFL score and they're accepted. During exam time here, that student would get 20 extra minutes per hour of exam time to complete an exam. So let's say your professor schedules a 3-hour exam. The student with the TOEFL score and the accommodations would actually get 4 hours to complete the same exam. And they're also allowed to have a paper translating dictionary, like from English to Spanish, Spanish to English. They can have that with them during the exam in case they blank on a word or want to look up a definition. But if you have a TOEFL waiver, you would not get the extra time on the law school exams, and you couldn't have a paper translating dictionary. So you take this test under the same standards as the native English speaking law students.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Alberto, come back to you. Did you still have a question?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I only have one question. Besides the LLM cost, how much will be an estimate cost of living in San Diego?
That's a great one. I would say like basic living, like housing, rental and food, what some people might call room and board, probably around 19,000-ish is an estimate for what it would cost for those things in San Diego. It's not a cheap city to live in by any means, but we want to make it as transparent as possible with the estimated costs for our students. And then maybe an additional 12, 13,000 for other types of expenses that come up: books, fees, transportation, gas, health insurance, miscellaneous personal expenses. So say 19-ish plus 13,000-ish, that would be 29, about 32,000 or so of possible expenses that a student could face in addition to their tuition. And so the merit scholarship would at least help you discount your tuition bill. But other expenses, if you know someone in the US or have friends or family member who can provide housing for free or at a reduced rate, that would save for sure on the housing estimate that I just mentioned. Rent's not cheap, but our students pretty much are living off campus, and many of them have a roommate. Others prefer to be on their own, so they get a small apartment or studio right on their own. And I would say they're all kind of living within a 10-mile distance, or let's say 10-minute commute from campus. There are a lot of choices very close to campus that are walkable or with a bike, and some people prefer to drive, so they might get a rental in Mission Valley or Pacific Beach or Linda Vista, which is the neighborhood we sit in. So a lot of good areas to choose from.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have 2 more questions, if you
Sure.
may. Well, regarding that, I saw on your website, expense chart, I don't know, that was provided. It was tuition fees, books, etc., and an estimate of housing and everything that you just mentioned before.
Yes.
It was around 81,000. Is that correct nowadays?
Yeah, that sounds closer. I'm just checking. I have a hard copy of a sheet I use for estimate purposes. That sounds pretty close if you were to count, expected tuition and typical living expenses. It may vary a little bit by student. But if I'm doing a student visa process for somebody and I'm the person at the law school who handles that, I would let the student know, here's exactly how much that you need to document with funds to show that you can afford your program. Maybe you have this much with a USD scholarship and that will provide part of the funding, but you need to show, for example, X amount of dollars or the equivalent of dollars in a bank account, or maybe a family member if they want to sponsor you from their bank account. So it has to be available cash, really. It can't be something speculative like an investment account, unless the person has the ability to withdraw cash from that pretty much at will. So I would let the student know how much they would need to show to qualify for the student visa. But the numbers you cited sound pretty on to me. Yeah, on target.
Great, thank you. And the other question is regarding the IELTS exam. Does it have to be like recent, like just taken right before the application?
Doesn't have to be that recent, but that's a great question. It just needs to be no less than 2 years old, because scores are considered official for up to 2 years. And that's both for TOEFL and for IELTS.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Welcome. And I saw a raised hand from Cesar.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question regarding the online program of the LLM. If I apply to the online program of the LLM, I get the California bar, and then I want to get the New York bar. How can I do the equivalence? Or I know that you said that we couldn't get the New York bar.
Yeah.
But is there different processes we have to do it, or we had to do a specific LLM in New York?
Yeah, you'd have to check the New York Bar Office requirements. They may have a procedure where you could apply to take it as a licensed attorney, like if you're already the member of the California Bar. I can't remember for sure, but they may have a shortened version of the test you can take, or your LLM coursework may be irrelevant because you're applying as an attorney applicant for their state bar. So in short, you really need to check with that state bar's office to see what bar exam options they have, depending on whether you're just an LLM graduate or are you a member in good standing of a bar already somewhere in the United States.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anybody else?
I have another question.
Yes.
So you offer a part-time and a full-time like study on camp? Because if I wanted to work, can I take the part-time LLM, or does the full-time allows me to work while taking the LLM?
Yeah, answer is pretty much yes to both. I wouldn't recommend trying to work and juggling a full-time study schedule. I think it's better if you were a part-time student and work. And the only thing to keep in mind is people with a student visa have to be enrolled full-time. But if you don't need a student visa, you're obviously allowed to work if you want. So yeah, you could do that. And it's just a matter of how much you want to juggle, right? Because even the part-time schedule as a LLM student is pretty demanding, but it means you would take 8 or less credits in a semester. That's considered part-time. And it also means as part-time, you would not be eligible for a merit scholarship. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. You'd probably be relying on personal funds or financial aid, right? A student loan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. And it is possible, let's say somebody started out as a part-time student, and then in their second semester, they'd like to switch to full-time, or vice versa, right? We've had that happen sometimes. So if a full-time student wants to switch to part-time in their second semester, if they have a merit scholarship, they will lose the second half of their merit scholarship disbursement by reducing to part-time status. But if a part-timer wants to switch to full-time, we may be able to do that and also possibly consider them for a merit scholarship at that point. Although scholarships are generally granted at the time of admission, you may be able to get some type of scholarship in your second semester if you go from part-time up to full-time status. Great questions.
I have another question.
Yes.
What's a good average we could expect from the merit scholarship?
It really varies on the candidate, and also sometimes our levels of funding are different each year. But I would say, just to give you an idea, maybe low end to high end or percentage wise, maybe something from 10,000 on the low end up to about 20,000 on the high end. And that's a total award. It averages out to maybe 20-25% discount, tuition discount for many applicants, but some awards might be lower and some might be higher because of the credentials of the applicant and also how much funding we have available, right, to use that year.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? You're asking good questions. I saw Jimena, you joined us. Did you have any questions?
No, thank you. Everything's clear.
That's good. Okay. And again, we are recording, so all of this will be available after the fact if you want to review anything that we've talked about or see any of the slides again. So I will, and Conchita will be sharing the information or the link with students as well. But you can watch for a follow-up email coming with the link to the Zoom recording. Okay. Well, if we don't have any more questions, it's been a pleasure to speak with you today, and we hope that you come visit us if you can. And if not, we still welcome your applications, either for spring or fall, your choice, or if you're looking at an online program, possibly, maybe next summer or the summer after that, if you're not quite ready to graduate yet from your law school. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to tune out and say bye, and we hope to see you here soon.